Hello, friends. Welcome back to Mysterious Mondays. Tattooed Biker here with you. Get ready to embark into the unknown as we unravel the mysteries of the cryptid world. Tonight, I'll be sharing peculiar and spine-chilling encounters from viewers who've come face to face with unknown cryptids and unidentified creatures. Brace yourselves, because these stories will leave you baffled. So now, let's ride. Number 1. Dear Tattooed, I'm being stalked. I don't know what it is. I've lived in the same house for the past 18 years, and it's only gotten worse. I live in an old coal mining town in Pennsylvania. I know my house is haunted, but I believe that to be outside the point. Some creature is stalking my family. The first encounter I had was in the early 2010s. I heard my name being called repeatedly from far away, and it sounded like my friend. I started walking towards home and turned because I felt like I was being watched. I saw a dark, humanoid figure that was at least 7 to 8 feet tall. I ran home. Then things were fairly quiet as far as I can remember up until the last few years. Recently, things have been amping up. It started as rustling in the woods and the feeling of being watched. Next came the deer. So many deer. There was one I recall seeing multiple times in the same spot for a few days on my way home that just didn't look right. The most recent encounters have left me researching what to do. 2 nights ago, my mom saw a pale white face with glowing eyes pressed up against the front door. She said she froze in fear and didn't know what to do. Tonight, I got home after dark and walked toward my house. Seconds after I locked my car, I heard a blood-curdling scream come from the train tracks nearby, followed by a very calm voice, yelling, "Help me," very loudly. I froze in fear for a solid 15 seconds, just listening. I slowly walked up my porch steps, just listening to 2 different voices screaming, one frantic and screeching while the other was calm and just called out, "Help me." I yelled in the front door for my mom because the frantic voice sounded vaguely like my youngest sister, but I thought maybe she was just messing around. When she came outside, it grew quiet and the frantic voice stopped. We heard "help me" 1 or 2 more times faintly, and then nothing. My sister was over at a friend's house, so it wasn't her. We went to pick up dinner, and there were deer everywhere. Now, this isn't uncommon for Pennsylvania to see a ton of deer, but like I said, these were weird. They stared right at you and didn't run from the car, even if they were in the middle of the road. Can someone please tell me what's going on? What are these things? Signed, Marissa. Number 2. Hey Tattooed. I live in the Klamath Mountains in eastern Oregon, about 20 miles from the California border. Growing up, I spent a lot of time outside, camping, hunting, and fishing. A few months ago, I had a strange experience on a family trip to our cabin near Crater Lake and wanted to see if you or your listeners could maybe help me find more info about what I saw. I was by myself birdwatching at a small pond in the woods, maybe half a mile from the cabin in the late afternoon. I was sitting on a big log with binoculars. I wasn't in a blind or anything, but I'd picked a spot where I thought I'd be less visible to any animals. After about an hour, I hadn't seen much except a few common ducks, and it didn't seem like many animals were very active, so I was thinking about just leaving. This was about an hour before sunset. Then I saw something moving the trees across the pond, probably 100 feet away. It was just a flash between trees, and I didn't really get any kind of good look at it. But I kept watching the spot, and after maybe 5 minutes, saw something dart from one tree to another. It was bigger than most any local bird, except maybe a heron, and moved very, very fast, without making any noise. But I still didn't really know what I was looking at. This happened again a few minutes later, and then again a few minutes after that. Each time it was moving closer and closer to the pond. I don't think it knew I was there, but it was still staying incredibly well hidden, and only revealed itself for a split second at a time. At this point, I'm thinking, maybe it's a kit fox or a pine marten, because of how fast and silent that it moved. But I still hadn't gotten a good look at any part of it in detail. It moved between trees a few more times until it was behind a big dead tree right on the shore. I was trying to stay as still and silent as possible, but worried it would see me, or more likely smell me and spook. But after a few more minutes, I saw something move at the edge of the water. A little arm and hand that looked just like a human's reached out and touched the mud. And then the head and the other arm came into view as it leaned out to drink from the water. I could only see the head and shoulders and arms from where I was, but they looked so much like a person's, except it was far too small and covered in what I took as grayish-brown fur. The face wasn't exactly human, more monkey-like, but it was too far away to see much detail. I decided to try lifting my binoculars to get a closer look, but as soon as I moved, it looked up and then disappeared back behind the tree again. I watched until it started to get dark, but I didn't see it again, not even darting between the trees. I went back to the cabin and told my grandpa what I saw. He's been a rancher in this area his whole life. He said, "It sounds like you ran into a hide-behind," and laughed. I said, "No, Grandpa, seriously, this isn't a joke." He said he'd heard stories about Bigfoot and hide-behinds, and several times saw little human footprints on hunting trips, deep in the mountains where no children should be. I think he believed me, but he didn't really know anything. I asked my dad and brothers, but they just started giving me crap about squatching. I went back to the pond the next day and walked around to where the creature had been, but I couldn't find any tracks or anything. I did figure that it had to be probably 3.5, maybe 4 feet tall, based on the trees I'd seen it close to, but narrow enough to hide completely behind a ponderosa pine, which makes me think it must have been standing and moving upright. And that's it. I wish I'd seen more of it, but that face and hands were absolutely not like any local animal. It looked very much like a monkey or a furry little human. I've tried to find more info, but the only cryptid people seriously talk about in the area is Bigfoot. The hide-behind they treat like some kind of joke. There may be little people or humanoids in some of the local Native American folklore, but not a lot of detail that I could find. I hope someone out there has some idea about what I might have seen. It was a very unique and memorial experience, and any further information would be very much appreciated. Thanks. Signed, Bill. Number 3. Hey TB, I saw something really strange once and wanted to share. It was the summer of 2000 in Knox County, Missouri, near a small village called Colony. And just north of there, the North Fabius River was where this concrete bridge is. I would fish on this small river, a lot of times underneath the bridge where there was usually a pretty deep hole to fish. One night I was fishing just on the east side of the bridge, on the south bank, and as I was watching my poles, I heard a loud crashing sound straight across the river from me. Something crashing through the trees. I looked directly in that direction, and I see this large object flying through the air and down to the river. Mostly what I'm observing when I first catch sight of this thing are enormous wings, and this thing lands right in the middle of the river, where there is a sandbar that basically divides two small channels in the river. It just stands there to the left of where my line is cast out, maybe 20 feet away or so. It was most definitely dark, but there was enough light from a burning candle that I had burning where I could see most of the outline of whatever it was that I was looking at. I will never forget the size of the wings and how it landed just like a bird. The wings were most likely white, or at least light enough that I could make them out pretty easily, but it stood up just like a man, and it had the body of a man. The wings were enormous and were possibly as tall, if not taller, than the body by a foot or two. It looked mostly naked from what I could tell, but I saw some kind of chest straps that went across its chest. I couldn't see a face, but it looked like it was wearing some kind of helmet and face shield. And I say this because it looked exactly like the face shield of the DC Comics hero, Hawkman. It had a pointed face shield that looked like a bird's face, just like the Hawkman character. It had wing-like pieces on its helmet. It looked like a helmet because it appeared to be a different color or shade than its body. After it had landed, it looked straight up and had its wings tucked in. And it didn't move for a very long time, but I could see water stirring up. I just kept staring at it, afraid to move. I can't say how much time passed, but it seemed like a long time that I watched it. All of a sudden, I saw it moving even more, and it looked like it had a large vase or something in its hand and was dipping it in the water, then pouring the water on its right wing. To me, it seemed like it must have been injured because of the way it crashed through the trees. That's what it appeared like anyway. After it did that, it stood straight and didn't move at all. It stood there for the longest time and looked more like a post because it was so still. I watched it for at least another 20 or 30 minutes, and it still didn't move. I was terrified, and I just kept thinking in my mind that it had to be able to see me, or at least be able to see the citronella candle burning. I started to tell myself that what I was seeing couldn't be real. I had 2 poles with me at the time, but only one was cast out. And the one that was cast out, I just started reeling it in, nice and slow, while keeping my eye on this thing. At the time, the wind was blowing the candle directly into my face, and it's all I can breathe in once I finally get my pole reeled in. I grab the candle bucket and move it from the right of me to the left. All of a sudden, I see this thing leap and jump into the water like a dive. And water splashes up, and there's a wake hitting the bank. I immediately grab my poles and take off running up the bank. I keep falling down, scared out of my mind and in a total panic, thinking this thing may be behind me. I finally got past the rocks and up above the bank and onto the road, and then went straight for my truck. I got out of there, still thinking this thing might be following me. I was so scared. I was actually scared for a very long time. Looking back now, maybe the creature was just as scared as I was. I don't know, and I don't know what this thing was. I just wanted to share. Signed, Jeremy. Number 4. Hey TB, what was this thing? It's hard to explain. I've never believed in anything like this. Ghosts were a bit out of reach for me. Aliens, well, of course, but myths and legends, I thought maybe, were based in some realm of truth, if not made up just for entertainment and storytelling. I went on a late-night adventure with a date. We drove about 30 minutes out of our city to grab some food in a different town. The place was open late and wasn't McDonald's, so we took the drive, had nothing better to do. I wanted to avoid tolls, so I took the back way. Why would I pay a toll for such a quick trip? Driving there, it was around 11 to 11:30 p.m. It's December, and late in the middle of nowhere, where basically I'm on the watch for deer and other suicidal animals. I keep my music loud and my brights on. We passed some cars driving out there, but traffic wasn't too bad. We grabbed the food and head back around 12 or 12:30 a.m. The road is empty. Once I left town and went on the back roads, there was no other drivers around. Again, it's the back way, not a gravel road, but I'm sure most people would have just taken the highway. No homes or businesses for miles, just open fields, hills, and wooded area. It's the Midwest, so pretty empty. On the watch for animals and music loud. Up ahead, my passenger and I see something crossing the road. I assume it's a deer at first, so I slow down from 50 or 60 to a dead stop. I only have liability insurance, and I'm terrified of getting my car rocked by a deer trying to catch up behind their friend. As I was coming to a stop, I got pretty close. It was halfway across the road, moving towards the grass and slinking its way into the bushes. It wasn't a deer. In my mind, what I was thinking before I got closer was, let me take a look where it came from to make sure I don't see any others trying to cross and to just continue on my way home. As I came closer, I locked eyes with it as it moved into the grass. It felt like forever. White, reflective eyes, making eye contact with me. Flight, fight, or freeze, and I froze. I just stared right back. It was in the grass, and I could still see its glowing eyes. It was turned to look right back at me the whole time it was moving forward where it was going. Until it looked away, and as if I was looking for more deer, looking at the other side to see if it was clear. And when I looked back, it was gone, and I couldn't see it anymore. My passenger just told me to go. In the moment, I remember them saying, "What are you doing? Just go." I thought he just didn't know why I'd stopped. So I asked, "Did you see that?" And he said, "Yeah, I did. Now go." I gunned it. I was immediately filled with a serious fear and dread. I can't really explain it, but that wasn't a deer. Thinking back, this has been replaying in my head over and over. We talked about it, and here's the thing. In the moment, my brain assumed deer. Now my memory just doesn't know what it was. When it was crossing the road, we couldn't see its legs. Not that it was slithering, but the only way I can describe it was like a dream. Like when you're dreaming and everything is fluid, constantly moving and changing and fuzzy. It was a pale beige, not really the color of a deer. Again, we were pretty close and I had my brights on. I've seen plenty of deer in my life. It had a huge torso, and it was sloped down. Like if we had seen the legs, the hind legs would have been much smaller and the front legs would be a lot taller. The head was a teardrop shape. No ears, no nose, no antlers, no tail or fur. No real defining features, just like in a dream. It was so vague, like a mist almost. The eyes were close set together and reflecting bright white. When it walked across the road and into the tall grass, it wasn't a trot. It didn't really walk like a deer. Its shoulders kind of rolled. My passenger described it like it could have walked bipedal. My passenger didn't see the head, and didn't see the eyes that were locked onto mine, even though they were looking right at it. They also claimed that they were screaming at me the whole time, and I don't recall hearing them at all. I remember hearing them very quietly and muffled, telling me to go, but that's it. I don't know much, and I don't know what to believe. Hours after we were both shaking, and I have this fear that just won't quite seem to go away. This is 100% honest and true, biker. I just want to know, what was that thing? Signed, Rich. And there it is. All I have for you tonight. I want to give a huge thank you to all the incredible viewers who shared their fascinating experiences with us. Your stories have left me astounded and hungry for more. If you've had a strange experience or a brush with the unexplained and you'd like to share, please send it to the email in the description. And it just might make it into a future video. Remember, the world is filled with secrets just waiting to be discovered. So thanks for watching. And until next time, stay curious, stay vigilant, stay safe. I'll be seeing you on down the road a ways. Biker out.